We've got a lot to do this morning in our garden to get it ready for planting, and that planting season begins now in Zone 8B. We're going to tell you what we're planting today and what you need to plant right now for this zone. It is really important that before we talk about what plants to plant in our garden right now, in your garden right now, we need to get our beds rehabbed. As you can see, our garden is a complete and utter mess. We haven't kept up with it this winter, we haven't weeded properly, and the weed pressure has taken over. We also have to rejuvenate these beds, which means getting some amendments on them, including that composted horse manure that you saw us grab the other week, and some kelp meal and some other amendments on the top of them so that we can rejuvenate them for this growing season. We also have to take care of all of our perennial plants like our asparagus behind us, and you can see our okra was still hanging out here in the ground with some dried seeds on it. Hey, if you're new here, welcome. We're glad you're here. Don't forget to go below, hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you can stay with us here on a permanent basis and find out more about our garden. Back to the video. You can also see our ground covering here. In this case, our black plastic, our thick black plastic, is old, and it's probably 3 years old now, and it's run its life. It's got a lot of holes in it, and weeds start to grow up through that. In this area, we haven't had the opportunity to develop yet, so I don't want the weed pressure and grasses that are underneath this, hopefully dead, but probably just dormant. I don't want them sprouting up if we rip this up. So we're going to rip it up and replace it. We have to do that now while we're doing these beds. That's another big job. Here's our most important task today, getting these beds taken care of so we can plant our onions. We've got to get this nasty winter weed pressure, these weeds from out of here. We need to remove all of our watering lines here, get this bed prepped, kind of push it back up on itself. I don't have traditional raised beds. They're raised, but I don't have a border on them, so they kind of slough off the edges. Kind of have to put them back into place. That's no big deal. We'll get that taken care of. Let's do it. So don't forget, when you're prepping your beds and getting the weeds out of here, get your water lines out of the way. I've cut these one too many times. And as much as it pains you, you can either chop off your remaining winter veggies, like this Napa cabbage here that actually didn't do too well because of that freeze, but chop off your winter veggies or just pull them out. So I wanted to take a second to say thank you to a subscriber. His name is Neil, and he sent me this hori knife for use in the garden. This is the very first time anybody has ever sent me anything. That is really kind of you, Neil. Thank you so much. I'm going to be using it here in the garden a lot this summer and testing it out. I've used it a little bit so far, and if you're not familiar with a hori knife, go check them out. They're really unique. This one has a stainless steel blade, and it's really sharp, actually. I'm pretty surprised how sharp it is. I've been using it for the garden for about a week, and these blades on either side, the serrated blade and the regular blade, have stayed really sharp. It's cool for getting down right under weeds and popping them up and kind of slicing the roots. But yeah, I like it so far. It's a little dangerous actually when you're working around a plant that you need to weed around, and you're kind of holding the plant back and sticking this down. If there's a weed right next to it, slice your hand. I don't know, maybe that's just user error, probably. But again, Neil, I want to say thank you, and if any of you are interested, this one is made in Taiwan, which actually Taiwan makes some pretty amazing stuff now. It's not the Taiwan of old. They make high quality things. So if you're interested in this, I'm going to leave a link to Neil's Amazon hori knife here, or the Amazon link to Neil's hori knife. It's called Sensei, and if you want, go check it out. It's pretty cool. Now that we have our beds prepared, we're going to plant one of our 5 most important early crops for the springtime, and that's onions. So I've done a video on this before, but I'll show you how I plant onions. It's really simple. I like to plant these onion starts here, and I like to take a little piece of bamboo, and this is about the same width as these little onion starts. We're just going to go through and we're going to make a hole about one every 3 to 4 inches, and then we're going to place one of our little onion starts in each hole. You want to keep your rows spaced maybe about 4 inches apart. Some people like to do them a little closer, but that gives the onion really a good space to get a nice big bulb. In front of us, we've got crop number 2, and that's spring English peas. Make sure you're not planting any southern peas, black-eyed peas, purple-hulled peas, things like that. I kind of consider those a bean, but regular old snap peas, they need to get in the ground right now. With peas, you can plant them actually really close together, and they have no problem growing when they're just a few inches apart. So what I do is I usually plant them in 3 really close rows, about 2 inches apart from one another, kind of stagger them a little bit, and then I put a trellis right above them. Crop number 3 is carrots. You can see these are our fall carrots. They're still in the ground here, but we're also going to be planting our spring carrots right next to them. These beautiful Parisian carrots do really great here. Little orange globe carrots, they're super good. Now you want to get these in the ground now in this zone because the weather's going to get too hot too quick. Carrots do really well in the cold, and we want them to still have those cold temperatures, germinate properly, but still have that cold temperature to develop those sugars inside them. Crop number 4 and 4A, and I'll tell you why in a second. These are our collard greens. They've been here for 1 year. That's right, a year. They do incredibly well in both the cold and the hot. That's what's so cool about collard greens. I did a video in the past, I'll link it probably in the description below, about collard greens. They're an amazing vegetable. They taste so sweet raw. Don't cook these things. They're better in a salad. So these things have been here for a year. Hot, cold, doesn't matter. Texas, 100-degree heat, and below freezing, not a problem for these guys. We are going to be planting some other collard greens in another part of the garden here because these will run their course. So we want to ensure that we always have collard greens in the garden. So here it is, 4A. This is kale, and this has also been in the ground since last year. But we are also going to plant some additional kale seeds this spring to get it going for next year. This is something we like to always have in the garden, and here in Texas, it survives in the garden year-round, which is really cool. Last but not least are potatoes, and they need to get in the ground right now. But first, we're going to take you inside and we're going to show you the process of what's called chitting. Chitting is cutting potatoes so that you can maximize the yield from each potato, and those potatoes need to cure for a few days. Let's go inside. Now it's time to get these big sack of potatoes cut up because we need to get these in the ground soon. But you can't just plant a potato like this. You have to cut it up into smaller pieces, and here's why. There's a lot of different eyes on a potato. They're called eyes. There's little sprout points like here and right there. We're going to cure our potatoes first, and you have to do that so they do not rot in the ground and they do not get eaten by bugs. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a couple of good eyes, usually 2 or 3, and on this potato is kind of small, so I'm just going to cut this one right in half. What we're going to do is we're going to let it dry in the house and cure for about 3 days. At the end of that 3 days, this is going to form like a leathery surface here, and it's going to be impervious to rot and to bugs. So at that point, we can now put them in the garden. Okay, you saw the process of chitting the potatoes inside, and that process takes a few days for those potatoes to cure. So we're not going to get them in the ground right today, but that is the last crop that you really need to get in the ground right now, Zone 8B, ASAP. As always, we hope this information was helpful for you in planting your garden, and the springtime is upon us here in this zone. So it's really important that you get all of those in the garden as soon as you possibly can. Now we want you to go check out these videos for more information on gardening and a lot of specific stuff for here in this zone. But we've got a lot of great general information for you as well. So don't forget to go check these out.